Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Kansas City Film Fest International. And we are here to talk with the creators of Found Wandering Lost. And I'll let each of you introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I'm Nicholaus James. I'm the director, one of the producers, and a co-writer in the film.
And I'm Michael Lopez. I am one of the producers on this project.
And I am James Thomas. I co-wrote the film and I wrote the film score.
Great. And can each of you just kind of give us a nice brief background on kind of your film experience or
Yes, of course.
experience?
Yes, of course.
I'll start because mine's the most like the minimal. Mine we'll get through it real quick.
Okay.
So
we'll work our way up. We'll do
there
that.
There you go. So my experience with filmmaking is actually this film, to be honest with you. The first time I ever co-wrote a film. I have been a musician professionally ever since I was 15 years old. So I've been doing music a long time, but this is also the first time I've ever wrote music for a film. So so my experience is really wrapped up in this film. So that's where I'm coming from.
Okay. My experience, I guess, starts with meeting Nick James 20 years ago. Since then, I've been doing feature films since 2008 in various capacities. So I'm not sure what number this one would be, but yeah, I've been at this for a little while. So you just leave it at that.
Yeah, and then I've actually been in love with cinema since I was 11 years old. I'm 40 now, so 75% of my life has been in love with this craft. I've done various types of media throughout the years. I run a production company that I opened up in 2009, which in 2009 a lot of businesses started. And I've done commercial work, corporate work, and then narrative filmmaking since. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Have you done any features films before this, or is this a first feature?
This is my directorial debut feature film. Yes, I've worked on other features in other capacities, a lot like Michael. But as far as directing, this is my first.
And you've made short films, one of which is in the festival. If you want to just mention that one briefly.
Yes, Kansas City Film Festival also accepted a short film that actually Michael co-produced on that one. It's called Distortion, and it stars Sarah McGuire. And that is, I directed that one, and I did some co-writing with the screenplay and produced on that. So yeah, Distortion's my sophomoric kind of follow-up from Found Wandering Lost.
And what's it about?
That one's a psychological thriller. The best way to sum it up is hurt people, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Well, so I watched your film, as everyone else, I guess, watching this has watched your film. I really enjoyed it. It's a really impressive, ambitious film, I think, for a local filmmaker, and excellent cast of actors, fantastic cast, and they all do a really great job. So let's talk. So praises to all of you for your accomplishment there.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that.
So let's start with the whole genesis and how this came about and how your screenplay got developed.
Well, it was very much of a snowball where, it starts with one person and then it rolls into the next person and then it goes from there. And I'll start it, and then I know James Thomas can take it from there, and then from James Thomas to Michael Lopez. But I liked the theme about, there's two types of people in the world. There's the ones, I actually took it from the movie Parenthood back in the 80s with Steve Martin. There was a short little scene when Steve Martin's character is arguing with his wife, what's her name, Mary Steenburgen. Yeah. And Grandma walks into the room and she talks about how Grandpa took her to the amusement park, and she gets on the roller coaster for the first time, and how she was scared and terrified and the ups and downs of it. and she actually loved it, even though it terrified her. And then she goes over to the merry-go-round and gets on the merry-go-round, and it just wasn't much to her, and she enjoyed the roller coaster. So basically, you know, do you just kind of go in circles in your life, or are you willing to take the ride of the ups and downs of life? And so I kind of, in a way, Ben and Trent are actually me. Trent is very much me when I was younger, very ambitious, kind of reckless in his choices, but you know, the admirable trait of ambition and trying to do something with your life. And then Ben, with a lot of remorse and regrets and fear from some failures in his life, how he kind of regressed in life and kind of just stagnated. And so I kind of dumped those two characters on the side of a road, which I felt would be the most basic way to kind of just have a character study, whatnot, to kind of explore that. And logistically, as a producer, I mean, we all want to make these big epic films, but, you know, with limited resources, like, what can we actually make? And so I am a California native. My childhood was back in California. And when I moved out to the Midwest in high school, you know, it's a completely different topography and different weather and climate. And I remember in my early 20s, I had a video job down in Wichita, and I drove through the Flint Hills, and I was absolutely mesmerized with the landscape. And I was like, wow, this is the Lawrence of Arabia of Kansas. And it's just a beautiful part of the state that a lot of people don't know about. So I was like, this was my canvas. I was like, I have to tell a story out here. And so I wrote a script, and at the time, I think it was only like 35 pages. So it was only, you know, it was really simple. And then James Thomas, who I actually went to high school with, we were in theater together. And so I've known, even though I've known Michael for 20 years, I've known James Thomas for almost 30. And so, so with that, I sent him the script, and I'll let James take it away from there.
Yeah. No, I I really appreciate hearing what Nick has to say, because we've been doing this film for so long that sometimes I forget kind of how this all started to begin with. You know, sometimes they have that old saying, you can't see the forest through the trees. Well, sometimes you're so thick in the forest, you don't remember walking into it in the first place. So that's kind of our where you kind of were at with this film for a while. So it was nice to hear that, Nick. That was nice. But yeah, so basically, Nick says he's a California native. I grew up on the East Coast, just outside of, like, basically right in the middle between New York City and Boston, in a little town right off the border of Rhode Island there. So so for me, I was flying a lot to New York and to see my family and friends and stuff like that. And he just mentioned to me, hey man, I've got like the script I'd love for you to look at. I was like, cool, man. So happens I got a 3-hour flight, so I'll just take a look at it. When I took off and read it, and by the time we landed, I had texted Nick. I said, well, I gave you a few notes. And he said, oh yeah. He's like, I'd love to hear it. And I was like, well, the few notes actually turned into about 50 more pages of script. And that's not, you know, at the time, you know, Nick and I, like I said, Nick and I have known each other for so long, since high school, you know. So at the time, I just thought, you know, I was just doing something fun or whatever. But now I look back at it now, and I hope he didn't like take it disrespectfully that, you know, I read his script and was like, oh, it needs all this other stuff, you know. So it was nice for him. So I always thank him for this. You know, we always talk about, you know, we all started at the same spot, but, you know, this is his baby, and he was willing to be vulnerable enough to show me those first 30 pages and say, what do you think? And I thought there was a lot of potential there, so much so that I thought there needed to be more to it. I really liked the theme. I liked, basically, I won't repeat it, but what he talked about, you know, the symbolism and the metaphors of the two characters within Nick's own personal experience. So to be able to open up yourself like that, and, you know, admit to another person, you know, this is something that, you know, is a part of me and who I am. And just to let me explore that world with him was a really cool thing. And now I'm experiencing filmmaking, and I never would have if Nick wouldn't have sent me that script. I'd probably still be playing in a cover band down the street in some bar. So so and it tickled or, you know, scratched an itch I didn't know I had. I like writing. Nick and I write really well together. And I think that's kind of how it all started, is just there was a script, but at the end of this whole thing, really what it was two guys who really have great chemistry together, who have known each other for a long time, have been very, very vulnerable with each other in moments of our lives. And I don't think the writing process would have gone the same way if all those ingredients weren't there. So I know that's kind of a rambling long about way of saying how I got involved, but I just wanted people to understand, how close to the chest some of the things in the script are to the creator. So
it sounds like some of the crime elements of the story were added later, and that it kind of started as the core of just these two guys.
Yes, of course. I don't personally know any mercenaries, so
we're not supposed to talk about that part, right?
Oh yeah, no. And then that brings us to Michael. Michael's been since I've known him from the beginning, he's had a lot of tenacity, and I call him the bulldog because he knows how to get stuff done. And so then I threw the script to Michael, and Michael, I'll let you take it away from how you got sucked into the vortex of Found Wandering Lost.
Yeah, I think going back to the metaphor of carousel or a roller coaster, one of the things that was intriguing was kind of looking for an answer to which one is better, just under the guise of not really knowing if there is an answer to that question. I still don't think that there is. I mean, the world needs both, and people individually need both moments as we just navigate through our lives. And so I thought that was the part that was most fascinating about it as we were working on this, just in my life now, of like, well, which direction am I choosing now? If I could do the film all over again, which direction would I choose then? Just as far as where do I see my life going? Obviously without all the crime and everything, but just, where it almost kind of triggers that, where am I going to be in 5 years? And it's like, well, I don't know where I'm at now to answer that question. And I felt like this film does a lot of that, as at least piquing the interest of kind of some internal investigation on kind of what we're doing with our lives just in general. So
yeah, Michael definitely spoke to the heart of that. The kind of story, I like ambiguity, where some people say open-minded or open-ended, films, but more like, just like anything in life, it's not all good, it's not all bad. You gotta kind of either reflect or provoke yourself in a film. I think that's where effective filmmaking kind of happens. That's basically the pulse to this.
Well, the script is a little fractured as far as the story events go, timeline and things, kind of jumbled up just enough to keep you a little guessing as far as what's going on. Not so much that you get confused. I never really got confused, but there were moments where I'm like, what's going on? Oh, I get it. And I think it really worked because it's kind of a tragic story in a lot of ways, and you have that in there, but the way it's kind of fractured, disjointed, when it ends, it's kind of a hopeful, positive ending despite all the tragic events. So
yeah, we got very Shakespearean with that. But I'm glad you noticed that. Of course, any kind of twists or any kind of nonlinear storytelling, you got to be really delicate with that, because it walks that blade of intrigue with the audience and keeping them engaged, and sometimes if it's too fractured, they can fall off and get confused and frustrated. So it's funny, if you do put the film in chronological order, I think it's a little simpler, a little duller. And so I think it really, and I remember in the writing process with James Thomas that it kind of organically told us to tell it that way, in a way. And it's funny, I didn't like go out and purposely do it that way. The only part I really wanted to that I wanted to have fun with the audience was in the car. I'll leave it at that. Inside the car when Ben and Trent finally get in the car. I thought that would be a fun way to kind of build it up and then sideswipe people. But another twist, I call it the Sixth Sense twist, you know, oh, they were dead the whole time kind of thing. I'm going to be honest, and I kind of mocked that with one of the characters. I wanted people, that was a little bit of a red herring where it's like, oh, you know, that person's dead. And we were like, yeah, we wanted you that way because there were other twists that we were trying to keep you not focused on. So that was a little bit of a device with that.
Yeah, and you speak to the part of it being organic, you know, me coming into that world and being an outsider at first. Now I'm in it, you know, but at being outsider first and being objective to kind of see where some of these characters might go. And then, like you said, we only started off with a 30-page script. So a lot of this happened because we literally didn't write it until like a year later in some parts, you know. And then what we haven't really talked about, and it goes to the script writing and how it's disjointed, is the fact that we actually did come to a, you know, decision like, hey, this is our final copy. And it was only like, what, Nick, like maybe 50, 60 pages.
Yeah, if you're starting to go into like how the crowdfunder, like the whole story behind the crowdfunder really kind of, it dictated the writing.
Right. And not to, you know, go into a long story about that, but basically we made these short little vignettes.
Yes.
Like as almost like mini trailers to get people like, hey, we're not just asking you for money in an indie crowd, funding situation, but we are actually giving you a little something like in return, like, you know, here's what we're kind of aspiring to. And then once we shot them and released them, like everybody on the crew, people behind the cameras, anybody who was involved in it were like, you need to keep those vignettes in the film and make this a feature. And Nick and I literally looked at each other and were like, do we want to do that? And because the vignettes were really supposed to be just for the fundraiser, and we weren't going to put those in the film. They were almost like you can call them like prequels to the film, you know. And so when we decided to put them in and involve the whole thing, you know, it basically evolved into this whole like, all right, well then how are we going to tell this story, because we didn't plan to do this at all. So what became a little fun thing to get people to give us more money actually made us more broke in a way, ironically, and we ended up making this film. So
James was completely right. So the original script actually starts when Ben finds Trent on the side of the road. That's when it started originally. And it actually ends when Ben sees the sign to Denver. And that was it. And so the first act of Found Wanting Lost, the feature film, is actually the 3 vignettes: the woods scene with Tim and Henry, the creek scene with Ben and Michelle, and then the hotel room with Trent and Allison. And we made those because in crowdfundings, we were sick of seeing, you know, filmmakers in a talking head box like this going, you know, I have a cool story, give me money so I can make it. And we wanted to put our
it sounded just like that, by the way.
We wanted to prove to people, it's like, no, let's actually make something and then and prove it to you. We'll show you the actors we're going to use. We're going to give you a little bit of backstory, because I'm big into characters. Like I don't need, I'm not a genre-based filmmaker. It's all about characters. And I felt it was a great way to at least introduce them. And yeah, we accidentally ran into some rich fodder. And so the original script being about 35 minutes, and then we had these other 15, 20 minutes. Now we're at like the almost hour mark, and it's like, well, a feature is 90 minutes. So, and everyone's like, you should kind of massage that in. And I promise I would have not done it if the writing wasn't those last 30 pages to add it into making it a full feature film. If it was arduous and there was labor involved and forced, I would have abandoned it. But like, I remember those writing sessions with James, and it was very it just flowed because we had enough pieces to fill those gaps in. And it really did do that. It just filled in, and we're like, this is a 90-minute film. And so from there, we went, great, we're going to go make a feature now, because I will tell any aspiring filmmaker, do not set out to make a feature first. And so there's a little bit of hypocrisy, but my exemption is that it organically kind of grew into that. And that's
it originally
where
was supposed to be a short film.
it was supposed to be a short, and it kind of went into that. So
And
Michael's chuckling.
because I originally wanted to keep it as a short when this conversation started happening. I was like, guys, this is a lot of work. Like, we're going from, you know, a few weekends of telling a good, you know, story, and then just producer brain thinking like, all right, if we have 35 pages, we can pull out 22-ish minutes for a short story, something that could be submitted to film festivals with a decent amount of success, just in that kind of TRT. And these two were very much like, no, we think we can get it there. We think we can get it there. And so it turned into, well, like, all right, let's see if that happens. And it did. Definitely don't have any regrets about it. I'm glad that it turned into a feature rather than a short, but I guess I can say that I speak to them really wanting to make sure that we had a great story to tell, because from the get-go, I definitely had reservations about moving forward as a 90-minute piece. But it worked out, and here we are talking about it. So I guess it's all for the good.
Technically, those vignettes were short films, so you made a few short films.
Right. Technically, you're right, Brian. You're right.
So that naturally brings us to the next step, where you got your script and you're ready to make a film. So how do you go about making that happen?
Yeah, so we were like, I think we can make this for about 40K. And so we did the crowdfunder and we raised 4. And then my team went, okay, now what? I said, well, I was still insane and said, let's still make it. And so I kind of I started dumping my own money into it. So a big portion of the film was financed by me. But even with the money I did put into it, a lot of people worked for nothing. And what was humbling was just the belief behind it. Like, we had that big picture of all of us at iFly, and all those people, a lot of those were extras on that set, but what was incredible about this is all the circumstances were saying like, no, this can't get done. This can't, you know, with the bubble gum and scotch tape that we had, it couldn't get done. And I think what we lacked in maybe financially, we made up in heart and people equity. Like, I just blew me away how many people just like, hey, I want to help, I want to work on it. And resources were donated, time was donated, skills were donated. And I think that says something, especially about the Kansas City filmmaking community, that you got a good story. And if you have the heart to fight for it, I think it's infectious, and other people sign up and go, yeah, I'll go to war with you. We'll go stand out in 105-degree weather in the Flint Hills in August and sweat to death and make this film. And personally, just from my perspective of the production, it absolutely humbled me. And so any roadblock we would hit, it was just thinking about, I would see everyone's face in my mind that I was making this film for, because they poured into it. Because it's, yeah, at the end of the day, it was my story and I was moving it. And so the time we got to production, I didn't feel it was my story anymore. And that was a good thing. That helped push me to get through some of the adversity that this film encountered through the way to get to the finish line.
And Nick won't say it, but he's selling himself short. I think, especially in this business, anywhere really, it's just nice to know that when you go to a workplace that you're treated as a human being and as a professional. And I think Nick developed that reputation. So he won't say it, but I will.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting into the meat and potatoes of actually making this thing. We the three of us have taken several trips down to the Flint Hills, and I mean, any road or question that you have about any of that area in Kansas, I can answer. I've been on, I think, every damn road out there. But it was a tough schedule, and the weather was rough, but we always had food. We always had water, which sounds like, well, of course you should, but it just plays back into like what JT was saying about having, treating people like human beings. We were never, everyone had a comfortable place to sleep at night. And there was always something to eat and snack on. And we just went out and shot and got it done. I mean, once a lot of that stuff is taken care of, you just get to a point where it's like, all right, here's our space. Here's how much time we have. Let's get creative AF and just hope for the best. Go to sleep, get up, do it all again tomorrow. And by the end of that process, you should have something that you're pretty damn proud of. And I think, a lot of kudos goes to the little towns that we filmed in as well. Everyone in every town was very accommodating, and we didn't have any, struggles with anyone in a particular town or any city governments or anything like that. Everything worked out really, really well. And that, again, that Midwest nice just works, and it's amazing to work with.
Yeah, like the climax of the film, we did have the law enforcement was very supportive. I mean, doing some of these scenes like out in the open on the open road, people driving by like, what is going on, kind of thing. And so the cops are like, no, we know them. We know what they're doing. It's all good. So that was encouraging to be able to do some of these difficult scenes right out in the open kind of thing. So
because none of those roads are anywhere near as desolate as they look like in the film.
Oh my, that was the biggest challenge. To my cast, I love that, Bryan, that the talent, the ensemble of the acting was something that stood out to you, because I can't praise enough Kyle Dick, Jeffrey Staub, Brian Paulette, Davis D. Rock, Jennifer Seward, and Christy Corvell, the 6 main characters. They made me look good. That's what it was. It wasn't me being awesome. It was them being awesome for me, and really taking life to these characters. And even the supporting roles with like Sarah McGuire in the diner, and it just which she's in Distortion. I think that's how that organically happened. I was like, she's really talented, so I'm going to work with her again. So, but there is a lot of strong acting talent in Kansas City, and that made me, I felt safe. I know how actors feel safe when they have a director kind of, incubating their performance and protecting that. But I felt safe as one of the co-writers, that they were really, that they were bringing an integrity and evolving the script and making it their own. That's some of that magic that's pretty cool to see unfold.
I just remember, Nick, at the very beginning when we started talking to actors, I remember Jeffrey Staub right from the get-go. We talked to him, and that was one of the things that we had talked to him about is we're like, man, this script has the potential to be something really good, if it really comes out with the actors and how they portray it. And so I remember you and I were at first worried, like, will this be enough to keep people's attention? Like, did we write a slow burn, kind of situation? And, I remember sitting there going, man, it really comes down to the acting. And we couldn't have been happier with what we got out of that. So we wanted good acting for this movie to be good. We got it, and it was great. So
I think I'm a frequent traveler, and I think a lot of people watching this are going to be really intrigued by all the locations. It's really, really great locations, from the indoor skydiving, you do that really well, to the wide open spaces. So can you talk about some of the locations where you filmed?
Yeah. No, what's really interesting, people don't know, is the bulk of the film was filmed in 2015. So you're watching a film that was captured 6 years ago. The iFly scene was filmed in 2017. So there was a 2-year lull between, and that was the last scene we needed. And it was like, because we really needed that backstory between Trent and Allison to kind of build up the stakes for what happens at the end of the film. And originally, we were trying to shoot at a roller coaster with the theme I was inspired with Parenthood. So kind of we're in a crisis mode because we couldn't find an amusement park that would let us film because of the logistics and whatnot. So I knew I wanted something about ascending and falling. And so I remember I live in Overland Park, and all the time on 435, I pass around Metcalf, I fly. And one day I went, huh. And I hit up James and was like, I think we can rewrite the roller coaster scene when Trent and Allison meet and do something a little different, and actually even work better, because red and blue are actually very strong motifs in the film. The I fly scene, I think, is like an icon of that, really kind of punctuates what I'm doing with red and blue in the film. Red and blue is big also in the compositions. The left part of the screen and the right part of the screen is very motivated as far as what we're doing with some of the themes of the film. So and then the Flint Hills, like, again, I'm 5, 6, 7 scouts. I don't remember how many times we went out there to find locations. But yeah, it was really interesting to all these locations kind of lined up. I think it really brought the production value up the film, that we did our due diligence in doing as many scouts as we did.
Yeah, if you ever want to see a road in the middle of nowhere that's paved without telephone poles and power lines, let me know, because I know where the only two in the Flint Hills are.
That was a big thing. Michael's jabbing me a little bit, and this is why I love him. As the director, the creative, which doesn't think logically. I wanted a nice paved road, but I didn't want telephone wires running on it. I wanted nice and clean, and that is a lot harder than you think, because it's either going to be a gravel road with no telephone, or it's paved and there's telephone wires. So kudos to Michael and his patience with the director's vision of making, getting that. Like, that's a big challenge.
And I noticed, you list all your locations in the credits, which is really nice. I noticed that you did not shoot in Colorado, so I'm wondering how you substituted your Colorado scenes while shooting.
Actually, that's a technical faux pas then, because actually that is Colorado. We did film in Colorado. We went, we were a little bit north of Boulder. So yeah, those are the Rockies. That is, that's a good note to know that in the credits. So yes, that actually is Colorado. So the film did take us all the way to Colorado to shoot that little moment, which that was a really fun trip with a kind of a bare bones crew. So.
And I didn't know there's a Denver diner, and I don't know if you specifically meant that Denver diner, but it's I'm a fan of diner food.
Yeah.
Denver diner is one of my favorite stops when I go to Denver, and it's right on Colfax. So I figured that's what you were talking about. I was kind of disappointed when you had Dagwoods at the end. I was like, wow,
yeah,
not the Denver diner that I was hoping for.
Correct. No, that was where we took a little bit of literary freedom. But I did look up Colfax. Google's amazing when you're writing, like, well, what diners are in Denver and stuff, and heard Colfax Avenue on that. So that was where logistics and budget kind of rubbed us on that. So, but yeah, other than that, I will say though, yes, those are the Rockies that Trent and Allison climb up. So we did do that.
And I also found out Denver Diner has shut down due to COVID, and they're not going to open back up. So it's very sad.
Oh man, that is a bummer.
So we've got 3 minutes left on our time. I think we can wrap things up. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add about the film. You shot it, you need to edit it. Any post-production stories or film stories?
Post-production, I was great. There is actually some visual effects of the film. I'm very much into where visual effects doesn't draw attention to itself. I had a very talented CG artist accentuate the effects. So some of it, the stuff that was shot on set practically, it was only accentuated by the visual effects. I like to coin that like Forrest Gump, where the special effects serve the story. It doesn't try to just be this glitz and glamour. But that was rewarding to see how he kind of executed that. But other than that, my closing remarks are, I just hope people for 90 minutes can sit back and reflect. And identify which kind of person they are between Ben and Trent, and if they're okay with that, and just enjoy the ride. So.
Yeah, like the only thing I can think of to add in is with posts is, like I said earlier, this was my first time ever scoring a film. So, just getting used to that, because I had been, like I said, I'm 39 years old. I've been playing across the country and around everywhere since I was 15 years old. Did it for a long time. But just to go from that world to this other world was a challenge. Just like everything, Nick does a great job with communicating, and we got it. And I was really proud of what we put together. So.
Got just a few seconds left, Michael.
I really, I don't have any. I mean, of course, there's tons and tons of stories, but don't necessarily want to bore anyone with them. But I thank everyone for watching this. We obviously had a passion to create these characters and tell this story, and ultimately can just love and appreciate everyone who took the time to stop and watch it. I think that may be the hardest part in this whole process, and this industry is convincing people that what you made is worthy of their time. And so for everyone who's done that, I can't thank them enough. And we'll continue to work together to bring some more work out, like we did with Distortion. But just thank you.
All right.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you guys for making the film. It was excellent, and I really enjoyed watching it.
Good, we appreciate that.
So thank you, and I guess that's it. We'll see you all later.
Thank you, Bryan. Thank you.
Next film.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.